Hi, in this video, we're going to learn about the technique of masking. We're going to learn what masking is. We're also going to learn the different types of masking that are present in Photoshop. We're going to learn how to change the background by masking the subject. We're also going to learn how to mask subjects into objects. We're also going to learn how to mask objects and images into text. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with this image right here. Now before you do any kind of edits to an image, it's always best that you make a backup of the original image. So for that, as we've learned before, I'm going to press Ctrl J to duplicate the layer. And I'm going to hide the other layer. I'm going to name this one image. Now how masking works is, you can click on this button right here. It will show Add Layer Mask. When you click on it, this shows beside the layer. Now you can mask using different tools in Photoshop. You can use a selection tool such as the marquee tools, the lasso tools, and also the selection tools. You can also use the brush tools. Now basically what happens is the mask works on black and white, or dark and light. So that means if I take the brush right here, I have my foreground color set on black. If I paint on it, the black areas get erased. And if I shift the white areas get visible. This is how masking works. This tool helps to view parts of a layer. Now why do we use masking? See, masking is a way of non-destructive editing. By non-destructive, I mean you can always come back and make adjustments. See, for example, if I was to make a selection, let's say using the selection tool of the subject, like so. And then I clicked on right click, layer via copy. And then I clicked on layer via cut. If I do that and I have this layer, you can see that the subject is selected. But as you can see, I've missed out a few spots like this. It's a big mistake right here. But I can't bring back those parts. In order to do that, I should go back to my old layer. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo. And then I should create the selection once again. This becomes a hard task to complete. So instead of doing that, there's a non-destructive way of doing it, in the sense that if I'm going to do it with my selection tool, I'm going to do this. Once I've done that, see, the selection is not perfect, but I'm just going to right click and fill with black. If I do that, see how the selection is done? But I can bring back the imperfect places by having the foreground color as white and selecting the brush. You can alt and right click to increase the size, and if you move the mouse to the left and right, and up and down increases the thickness of the brush. So I'm going to have it at 100% hardness in a small brush. And if you keep on brushing, you can get back those areas that you've lost, as you can see. And you can do this infinitely. You can keep making changes again and again. So black erases and white makes it visible. So for that, make sure your foreground and your background colors are white and black respectively. If you select the layer, and if you're on different colors, if I say red and yellow, you can press D to bring it back to black and white, which is the default color swatch in Photoshop. You can also press X to switch between the colors. That means the background color becomes your foreground color and the foreground color becomes your background color, like so. So if I select the mask again, and I can just press X to bring black as the foreground color, then brush the areas I don't want. If I press X again to bring back white, see, so the workflow becomes easier. Now, in any situation, if you want to view your mask area, you can hold Alt and select the mask. This shows the masked area. I personally don't use this, but there may come a time where this can become useful. Let's carry on. So let's start again. I've undone all the layers and masks that I've made, and I'm only left with the background layer, which is the original image, which is hidden, and also the duplicate. So far, we've learned how to create masks using the brush tool. But there are different ways and tools you can use to create a mask, which can make it that much more perfect. So we can use the marquee tools, the lasso tools, and the selection tools. So I'll show you examples of each, starting with the lasso tools. I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle over here. If I do that and click on the mask tool, that means everything except that selection will be masked. Or in that case, if you want that area to be masked, you can just right click and select inverse. If you do that, click on mask. See how that area is masked out? Similarly, it can be done for all the marquee tools. I'll show you one example also. I'm going to take the electrical marquee tool, create a circle right over here, and I'm just going to click on mask. Similarly, we can also do the lasso tools. If I'm going to do this shape over here and then click on mask, see how that happens. This is where we also learned where the magnetic lasso tool also becomes useful. So I'm going to select the subject using the magnetic lasso tool. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, but we'll try our best. So there we have it. I'm going to click on mask. See how the subject is cut out from the background. Similarly, we'll use the selection tools as well. Let's use a quick selection tool. Select the subject and mask. It's not perfect as you can see, but then I'm just showing you examples of tools which you can use to mask. But by far my favorite way of selecting a subject in an image is to go to the selection tool, and as you can see, for the newer versions of Photoshop you can see this option on the top which says select subject. I click on this. Photoshop does its calculations and then selects a subject automatically. We don't have to do any work there. I'm just going to click on mask. See how the subject is perfectly cut out. Next, we're going to learn about negative masking. I'll come back to the start again where I've created a duplicate of my image. So what is negative masking? Negative masking, put in simple words, is basically a black mask. So as you can see in masking, black erases and white makes it visible. So I'll show you how a negative mask can be created. It can be made in two different methods. One is by clicking on the mask icon right here, and then you can press Ctrl I, and that inverts the mask. See how the entire image is now blank? The second way to do so, let me delete this first. The second way to do it is by clicking Alt and holding it and clicking on the mask icon. There automatically an inverted mask is created. Now with the inverted mask, you can select the brush tool and have white as your foreground color. And then you can paint in different parts of the image that you want to show. Now where does negative masking become useful? Let's delete this mask again. Now before I showed you with the marquee tool, you can make masks by dragging out the marquee tool and then by right clicking it and choosing select inverse and then clicking mask to mask out this area. But what if we could avoid that step of right clicking and choosing select inverse? So for that, I'm gonna go back, create another selection with the marquee tool, and without even following that step, you just need to press Alt and hold it while clicking on the mask icon, like so. So you can do that for every single tool that you can use on a mask. That is like the marquee tool, the lasso tool, and the quick selection tool. Now another area where the negative mask becomes useful is when you use these adjustment layers. For example, I'm going to use a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. I'm going to bring up the brightness and reduce the contrast. But I don't like how this adjustment layer is affecting the subject. I just want this to be applied on the background. So what I do is I'll go to quick selection tool. As you can see, the select subject tool, as we discussed before, I'm going to click on that. Once you click, the subject will be selected. Now I'm going to create an inverted mask by simply pressing Ctrl plus I, like so. You might not see a visible change, but when you hide the layer, adjustment layer, you can see the difference. See, it's only affecting the background and not the subject, which is the effect that I wanted. So you can apply these kind of effects to or all these adjustment layers. This is just one such example. Now that you have understood the basics of layer masking, let's put it to use. So a situation where you would want to use layer masking would be when you want to change the background. So I have this image over here which we used previously. I want to take the subject of this and add it to another background. And this will be the background that I'm going to use. So let's begin. I'm going to start off by resizing this image. Once you've done that, let's go to our subject layer. Now I don't want this background, I only want the subject to be seen. So what I'll do is I'll take the easy route here and I'll go to the selection tool and I'll click on select subject. As you can see, the selection is found. I'm just going to easily go and click on mask, add layer mask. Click on that. See how the background just disappeared. Now I'm going to resize the subject by clicking Ctrl T to transform. I'm going to bring it like so. And it's as easy as that. Here, we've changed our background. After a few minor adjustments, I made the image like this. And that's the basics of layer masking in Photoshop. As mentioned in the beginning, there are different techniques of masking in Photoshop. The first one being layer masking, and the second one, which we're going to learn, is clipping masks. Now, I'll show you what clipping masks exactly mean. So let's take the rectangle tool here. I'm going to have my fill on red, and we'll have stroke to nothing. I'm going to drag out a rectangle And I'm also going to drag out an ellipse as such. Let's change the color of that to yellow. But I want this ellipse to be confined within the space of the rectangle. And that is where the clipping mask becomes useful. Now the layer you want to clip should be above. So to clip, you can just right click, and as you can see, there's an option called create clipping mask. And as you can see, the top layers are gone. You can also move it within the selected area. This is what a clipping mask does. It confines the clipped layer to the layer below it. Let's do that once again. This time I'll show you another method. Right. So rather than right clicking on it, you can hold Alt, and if you place it between the two layers, you can just click it. See, it clips to the bottom layer. That's another way of doing clipping masks. Now you know the basic functioning of a clipping mask. This can be done on any two layers for that matter. So since we're done doing it with shapes, let's do it with image this time. I'm going to delete these two layers. Here I have one image which I want it to be the bottom layer, and here is a subject that I want to place on that bottom layer. Let's begin. I'm going to resize this image like so, and once I have the subject layer as well, I'm going to resize it again by pressing Ctrl T. Now all you need to do is hold Alt, bring it between the layers, and there you have it. I'm going to resize this again like so. See, the top layer, which is of the model, will only be confined to the space of the bottom layer. And this is how clipping masks work. You can use it for any kind of layer you want. After a few editing, this is the final result that I came up with. You can also use this technique for text. So I'm going to type out a text right here. I'm going to take the text tool, and for this example I'm just going to write mask like so. Let me resize it like so, and let me change the font. This is the font I want. I want to align it, so I'll press Ctrl A, take the move tool, and do like that. Ctrl D to deselect. Let's hide that for now. And this is the image that I want to mask into the text. So what do? We take this layer above the text tool, and then you press Alt and hold, then just click between the two layers. And as you can see, the top layer is masked on to the bottom layer. After a bit of editing, this is the final result I came up with. Now you have learned the fundamentals of masking in Photoshop. I hope it was easy to follow through.